So what was the scoreboard like this year then against Oxford?
Yeah, don't watch that.
Tree.
Mitichi, yeah, I can speak. I don't like when people sort of are defined from one box. When the cameras aren't rolling, when things are difficult, when there's no consequence for you being lazy or there's no consequence for you doing really, really well, are you still the same person?
My name is Jamal and welcome to the first episode of the Pre-Uni Podcast, a place where I talk about uni, sixth form and everything in between. Today, my first guest, it's kind of hard to describe this guy, but when I was first thinking, he's like the kind of cousin that all your parents compare you to. He seems to do everything with a winning smile. Basketball, flying planes, and just living life. So Sidney, how are you today?
I'm good, thank you. As Jamal mentioned, I'm Sidney. I'm a first year student at the University of Cambridge. I've just finished my first year actually, so I'm going into second year. I'm excited to be here.
That's great, Sidney. So I'm pretty sure you went to Watford Grammar School for secondary and sixth form.
Yes.
So what was it like going to a grammar school, especially in Watford?
So I think Watford, there's sort of two different questions there, so I'll break it down into the two different. So growing up in Watford, I think was very useful for me because it's just outside of London, so you get the whole London experience because it's very well connected, but also you get to see walks of life from outside of London. It's very like weird culturally because it's almost like its own thing, but it's also in that sort of northwest London sphere. So I think it was very useful in a sense because I got to meet people who are very wealthy, very poor, like northern, southern. I just got to meet so many different people. And the grammar school aspect of things, I think it was useful. There's a lot of bad stereotypes about like all boys schools, grammar schools, that kind of thing. But I think it was actually quite useful for me in the sense of it's sort of like a dog pound there. Like if you can survive that school, there's not really much you haven't seen. So
how do you think it then shaped you as a person? Like what kind of characteristics did it instill in you?
Definitely like self-belief and like self-confidence. That school, like if they will mock you for anything and that kind of stuff, but obviously at the time it seems like it's kind of harsh or whatever, but 100% I'm so grateful for that experience in the sense of it made me a lot more like resilient and it made me a lot more tough. But also the people there are ambitious, so it just gave me a whole new view of like what I can achieve as opposed to, schools just down the road where people didn't really end up doing as much with as little. So
I'm glad to hear that. So like you said, Watford is just outside of London.
Yeah.
And London has a plethora of well-known sixth forms.
Yeah.
There's the Bramptons, the NA,
yeah.
the NCS. But you decided to stay at the school for sixth form.
Yeah.
How comes?
For me, like, I'm not from a background necessarily where I had all the information about all the different schools. I sort of just knew what was around me. So I never really considered Brampton or LA or NCS originally. They came up on my radar, especially like when it was time to apply for universities. Then I heard about like the Brampton Bandits and how they would clear out all the best universities. But to be honest, in my opinion, I think it was useful for me because I got to really establish myself. Really, I didn't have to worry about moving schools and having to find new friends. I really got to focus on the academics, focus on what I really prioritized. And it really helped me like carve my own path as opposed to having to move to a new location where I'd have to reestablish my feet and then do the academics. So if you get the opportunity to stay at your school and your school's good enough for that, then I would advise that. But I do understand why people want to switch.
I like how you talked about carving your own path and about university places as well. So what kind of path when you were in year 13 were you trying to carve out into? What kind of universities did you see yourself attending?
Yeah, so I originally didn't actually apply to Cambridge. So I took a gap year and reapplied to Cambridge. But originally I applied to Oxford, LSE, UCL, Manchester and Loughborough. And for me, I always saw myself at either Oxford, but particularly LSE. That was the original plan. My sister was at LSE. I wanted to get in for the politics and economics course, but it didn't work out. And I think it sort of helped redefine what I wanted. Obviously, African household, there's a lot of stereotypes about, your kid taking a gap year, he might end up being a failure. I had so many different uncles and aunties come up to me saying like, oh, like it's the worst decision you can make in your life. I know some people who have taken gap years and they've ended up like on the street. These are things which I was actually told before. But I did it and it allowed me to sort of redefine my path and re-choose what I actually wanted to study. Because before it was more like people would tell me, apply for PPE because you're good at politics and you're good at economics. And I didn't really have the chance to really survey the full field and take a couple dribbles back and see the whole court for what it is.
It's important as well to go at your own pace for sixth form, isn't it?
100%.
It's only you living your own life.
I would say so. And with sixth form, it's sort of the final decision which you can make where there's like this is the start of the real consequences of your decisions, right? Because you're not paying for sixth form, but it can define where you go to university. It can define if you want to stay in the country. You can define if you want to go into the trades. So I really think that opportunity to sort of do it again, but take it a lot slower and resurvey everything just allowed me a better way to see where I wanted to end up.
Didn't you as well apply to American universities during sixth form?
I originally wanted to apply to the American universities the first time around, but I didn't get the chance. Looking back at it now, if there was more information about it, I definitely would have, because the opportunities out in America are absolutely ridiculous. And for me, it's more like a situation where I know eventually I'll end up in America, so I'm not really rushing to go there for my undergraduate degree. But I'm very happy with Cambridge right now.
So what made you, despite all of the surrounding pressure from family, resolve to take that gap year? What made you disobey your parents?
I'm trying to not like set myself up too much here, but essentially, I just one day decided to cancel all of my offers. I had very good offers from Manchester and Loughborough and that kind of stuff, but I just decided to rescind my application completely without telling anyone, which I would not advise for most people. Like, it worked out for me, but that doesn't mean it worked out for everybody. But I also had a very cool offer to work at a flying school, sort of flying these small planes, and that's something which I was always interested in, because originally I didn't want to go to university. I wanted to go to straight to a flying school. So with that in mind, I said, look, well, no one's going to make this decision for me. This is the time where I can really define who I want to be, as opposed to just following a set path, which is traditional for people like me, essentially.
So what did you have in mind then when taking the gap year? Like, what did you want to get out of it, essentially?
It was twofold, like the external and the internal, right? So the externally, I wanted to sort of prove to everyone else that, like, okay, I'm good enough to get into any of these top universities. I'm good enough to come out of the other end of the year in a better place than I was when I first started it, essentially. Internally, for me, it was a lot of proving, like, okay, well, things didn't work out the way I wanted to. I didn't get into LSE the first time round. I rescinded my application for the other universities. So for me, it was a lot about, are you as smart as you really think you are? You know, a lot of proving it to myself. But also, it gave me a lot of time to think to myself, okay, well, do I want to become an airline pilot? Do I want to go become a student? Do I want to go into finance? And it gave me a lot of time to consider all the different opportunities, as opposed to being tunnel visioned, really. So I think it was very useful for me.
Why did you initially have that belief then that you should be at a top university? Because as you know, Cambridge isn't for everyone. So why did you think it was for you?
Like I said, with the whole grammar school thing, definitely there was a prestige of Oxford and Cambridge, and sort of seeing the people who got in, I didn't think I was any less qualified than them or any less able to be at that sort of institution. That's number one. And number two, it's like, I just think there weren't many people like me there. So I wanted to be the change which I wanted to see, essentially. There were black people there, don't get me wrong. There were people who play basketball there. There were people who even do flying there. But sort of seeing people who have that sort of mix of everything, plus like can actually talk to people and touch grass and, like, you know, have a bit of swag about it. I just thought if I could go there and add that, I could really contribute to a university like that. So
yeah, I think that's really important as well, because at these like elite institutions, it can be hard to like for people to want to put their foot in the door, especially when they don't see anyone else like them. So to want to be the first person to fully step through and keep the door open so others can come through as well is very important. And that does show me that you're like an empathetic person as well, which I really respect. So you touched on it briefly about flying and basketball, but how come you decided not to be one-track focused and only focus on academics? Because that's what grammar schools are known for. Yeah. And Oxford and Cambridge. So why did you decide to be head boy, play rugby, and also play basketball?
So rugby was sort of forced upon myself. Like, I'm actually not that guy when it comes to rugby. I enjoy it, and I played a lot in school, and I would dabble more into it in my second year of university. But rugby was not necessarily the hill which I'm trying to die on. It's a fun sport, don't get me wrong, but that's not my sport. Basketball was not played at my school at a high level, and I wanted to really sort of take it to that next level because it was sort of seen as like a third tier sport. Like my school's priority was rugby, hockey, cricket. And then below that, it would be like tennis, badminton, sometimes football. And then even below that, it would be basketball. But I just thought with the platform which I had as head boy of my grammar school, I could really bring it to the forefront. And we managed to win this tournament. It's called the LISBA North London Conference, where all the top schools in North London would play. And then eventually we'd play the champion of the South of London. And then we managed to play that and win that tournament as well. So it was definitely a huge thing for me personally, and a big milestone for basketball in my school. And now even when I go back there, that you see the kids from like year 7 like playing basketball, doing tween hezzies and that kind of stuff, and that's something which I couldn't even conceive of. So I didn't really go into it with like a greater plan. It's more like, well, what can I do with the resources I have at my like disposal right now? So that was a big thing for me. But yeah, I do have that same level of drive and integrity when no one's going to know how hard you're working for the base things. You know, there's a lot of things in life which I found are even maybe too embarrassing to tell people that I'm working on, or that it's too sort of confidential for me to even disclose that this is a big thing for me. But a lot of the biggest achievements that people have are not the sort of, okay, I've gone into this internship, or I'm going to this university, or I'm doing this right now in my life. A lot of it is a very personal level. And once you have those things all sorted out, you're humble and vulnerable enough to say, look, this is what I'm working on. Then of course you can have aura, because it's a self-belief. It's like, I've done this myself, so how can you tell me something that I already know about myself? So that's my view on it, at least.
Touching on as well, who are you when the cameras aren't on? I'm guessing that's a theme that came up a lot during your gap year.
100%.
No school schedule,
100%.
parents are at work, you're at the yard by yourself. So how did you still manage to get things done?
It's self-drive, number one, and just a clear vision, right? I think for me, I've always been raised with sort of, you have to view yourself at this level and how are you going to get there, you know? And it can be a positive thing for some people, it can be a negative thing for some people, but for me, it was a very positive, overwhelming experience in the sense of, okay, no one's here to hold me accountable. No one's here to sort of hold my hand through tasks. So what will I do so that I can end up where I want to be? And that's what I kept telling myself for a whole year. And obviously it was tiring because people don't realize how long the UCAS process is, right? It's, you apply in like September-ish time, but you actually start writing a personal statement in the August, and then you have to wait till, let's say for Cambridge, for example, December before you hear back for interview. You do your interview, then you have to wait till January that you hear if you got the offer, and then you have to wait again until you actually have to sit your A-levels. You have to wait again until results day. So it's a long process. It's really, really tedious. And so in that time, it's just, who do you want to be? You can, like, if you put in the work now, you can be whoever you want to be in the future. But if you don't, well, then the opportunities just become more limited.
Now, we touched on a lot of very abstract ideas,
100%.
but I feel like if I was in your position, you know, at the end of year 13 and taking a gap year, how come you didn't think about just running it back for Oxford PPE? What made you first which is kind of traitorous for anyone listening that's by the way, and why land economy? So first of all, what is land economy?
That's such a good question, and I feel like if you apply for land economy, be prepared to hear that a lot. Like, I always say, imagine doing maths, econ, politics, and geography A-level, but then step it up. So as if you were to do like a third year of A-levels, that's what it feels like. They sort of gear it more towards the real estate or like environmental side, just to sort of specialize it. But when push comes to shove, it's those 4 subjects, but just maximized. Yeah, I think it's a very good degree in the sense of it opens up a lot of doors for you. Within Cambridge, it gets mocked a lot because it's seen as a sort of easier degree, but it's rubbish. Like, I think it's by far the best degree for people who are interested in both economics, law, and just want to have a real world application to their degree. Some people are at Cambridge to pursue academic excellence, that kind of stuff. But for me, I just want a degree which sort of is my interest, but also has very good career opportunities at the end of it. And why Cambridge over Oxford? For me, I was never really in love with either one of them at first. I didn't really love Cambridge. I didn't really love Oxford. I really liked the college which I applied to because I went on an open day and I sort of stumbled into it. So my friends gave me a list of 5 different colleges they wanted me to visit. I won't name them because it's kind of peak, but like when I went to them, they're all kind of mid. And so I was like, I don't really want to go to Cambridge anyways. And I got lost in the car park of the last one and then stumbled into my college now, which I'll say is Downing College. And I was like, this is where I need to be. This is where I want to apply for. So that's the main thing for why Cambridge over Oxford. And then why did I not run it back for PPE? Because I didn't like philosophy and I didn't like politics. That's the honest truth of it. So why would I apply for a subject which I only like one out of the 3 main subjects, really? So
fair enough. I'm glad to hear for your college lawyer that it sounded like love at first sight.
Yeah, it was a very romantic experience, basically. But yeah, no, like, and now that I've done a year there, I'm so glad that I chose Downing. It's a really, really good college in the sense of it's quite middle of the pack in a lot of things, which is good in the sense of it's central, so you can get to like places quite quickly. It's it's got enough money. It's got a very well tight knit community, and it's just a beautiful college. So yeah,
that's great to hear. So now let's take it back to the start of your first year.
Yeah,
it's October.
Yeah.
What were your first impressions of Cambridge? Actually, before that, what were you thinking in going into university, being a year older than anyone else? Did you feel any sort of stigma?
I think a lot of people call me uncle, which like I was not ready for like the people who were in my first year, but obviously a year younger than me, have a lot of like vim, a lot of venom, which I was definitely not prepared for. But like apart from that, nah. When you're at university, no one really cares, number one. And number two, I just think there are a lot of gap year guys there at Cambridge. I don't know if it's a Cambridge specific thing or just in that year group in particular, but I think more and more people are taking gap years, so it's not a very weird thing. I didn't feel like I'm much older than everyone. Most of my friends are gap year guys, but in first year. Also, certain countries like France, I think, and Singapore, they come into university a year later, or they have mandatory military service, for example. And so that means that people can be a bit older in their first year. So it's not that deep, for me at least.
That's fair enough. What were you expecting then going to Cambridge? You've been thinking about this to university as part of your vision for such a long time.
Yeah.
So what happened when you met reality?
I was not ready for the workload. The workload is a lot. But at the same time, like I tried to just remember why I was there, remember where I came from. There were times where it's hard, because they talk a whole different language out there. They've got like nat ski and comp ski and punting and all these like matriculation and things which I wasn't very used to. Whereas for some people, it seemed like it was second nature to them. And also I didn't have like a support base because the people from my school don't generally go to Oxbridge like that. They go into top schools, don't get me wrong, but generally not necessarily Cambridge or Oxford. So sort of going in alone, it gave me a good chance to see Cambridge for what it really was, rather than being in a friendship group where I could just sort of hang out with who was comfortable. But I think it was really a benefit. I had the basketball to fall back on. I was in the university air squadron, which allowed me to do the flying as well. So yeah, I think I wasn't out of my depth. It was just like trying to keep your head above water, but I managed it. So yeah.
But why flying? Because I get the sense that you want to be like a well-rounded person with a multitude of skills. But for a lot of people, flying isn't the first thing that comes to mind.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like at this rate, you might get your pilot's license before your driver's license.
And that's not uncommon, I know a lot of people at the flying school which I used to work at who are 17, because you can actually get your pilot's license at age 17, whereas I think for your driver's license, you have to be 18 for it. So it's not unusual. I won't shout out their names, even though they're really cool guys. But I know a lot of guys who've got their pilot's license much before their driver's license. But for me, the pilot's license thing, I originally wanted to be an airline pilot way before I knew anything else. The story of it is actually kind of stupid. So like when I was younger, my sister was like, I was like, I want to be a pirate. My sister was like, you can't be a pirate. And I was like, what do you mean I can't be a pirate? Like, I want to be a pirate. She's like, you can be a pilot, but you can't be a pirate. And I was like, fine, I'll be a pilot. And so that's literally my reasoning for it. And so I just said, well, one day I'm going to get my pilot's license. This was when I was like 5 or something. And so ever since then, I was just like, you know what? How can I achieve it? Well, then, is this expensive? So how many hours will I have to work to get it? Okay, can I work there and get a discount for it? And yeah, I just took a year out and I sent off a DM to the flying school saying, look, I've flown with you guys before. I want to work for you guys for a year and see if I can get my pilot's license from it. And yeah, I managed to make a lot of progress in that 1 year, and it was really enjoyable. So I don't know where I'm going to end up in it. I don't know if it's going to be a career thing, if it's just going to be for fun. Might do flight instruction, might do private jet. But for me right now, I'm trying to keep all the doors open. And it's just a very interesting door that not many people have really tapped into.
Very much. I feel like it gives you something else to speak about, because I feel like if we're looking at base stereotypes, when people first think about being interesting things. They first think playing an instrument,
Yeah.
learning Spanish, playing a sport as well. And I'm guilty of 2 out of those 3. So I feel like being a pilot is something uniquely interesting and a lot more uncommon. Especially when you go and bring that to like people that like you show people.
Yeah, I agree. But maybe for me, because I've been around that space for a long time, I was really interested in it for so many years. And then all of my friends now are somewhat aviation related because I worked there for a year and my friends are in university. So I was working around like people who are now in the airlines, for example. Shout out Faja. She was the UK's youngest female flight instructor. She was my instructor as well. Or like all of my friends were just in that sort of space. So it never felt like it was something so foreign, you know? And it's like, okay, the plane's broken. Okay, we'll fly to France to get it fixed. Or like, okay, we've got a spare seat. Sydney, do you want to come with us to Belgium kind of thing? And, you know, it's cool when you're in it. And when you step out of that bubble, much like the Cambridge bubble, it sounds like so magical and sounds so foreign. But when you're actually in it, it just sounds like physics, maintenance, you know, engineering, meteorology. It doesn't sound like anything crazy.
Not too crazy. Just flew out to France last night.
Yeah, but you know how it is. Definitely. And once I finished like all the license stuff, I'm gonna try and fly some of my friends to France, Belgium, make some fun trips. You know.
So we're going Paris for 3 years.
Yeah, so something like that. I have to speak to my manager, obviously, that kind of stuff. But yeah, we'll see how it goes. Why not?
Calm. Now, another thing that impressed me about you is that you made the Cambridge University basketball team as a fresher.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, I understand what Cambridge Blue is.
Yeah.
But could you explain to the audience
Yeah.
how hard it is to be a Cambridge Blue, especially as a first year? Let's set the scene.
Okay. So I come into Cambridge not really knowing what the talent level's like and not really knowing what the difficulty's like. There's some YouTube videos on it, like some previous matches, but it was a couple years back, so I didn't really have any gauge on how difficult it was. So you pull up to the main training area, is the main sports hall, and about, let's say, 60 people came for tryouts. And bear in mind, a basketball team is about 15 spots, of which 8 of them had already been filled by people on the team from the previous year. So you're really competing for a very few spots. I was in my first year. Usually for Cambridge, either the team is made up of postgrads or it's made up from people who are friends with people in the year above. So it was already very hard to break into. So you have to compete at a level where you can't really make mistakes. Basketball is another sport as well where it's not really played in the UK. So you're also competing against a lot of international students from America, Canada, even Greece, like countries where basketball's a thing. So for me, I was like, look, I just have to ball out, see what I can do, right? So Cambridge have a system where if you're in the first team, you're a blue. It's Cambridge Blues. Oxford also have blues as well. And if you're in the second team, it's half blues, I think. So I basically just rocked up to the training and said, look, I've got nothing to lose. Let me just ball out and see what I can do. And yeah, I just hooped out. There's not much really else I can say. I got some nice dunks, I did some nice runs. And yeah, but that's all you can really do. Try and show out. As a first year, it's more about trying to be memorable in that tryout. You know, you have to sort of leave it all on the floor. You can't leave the whole thinking, oh, but I know I could have gotten in if I had done this, or if I should. I don't have that kind of feeling. So yeah, it was about a 2-hour tryout. And then right after that, coach just said, well, do you want to join us in our training? Our training is literally right now. So just play for another 2 hours. So at the end of it, I was actually walking out, like my legs were twitching, my neck was spasming, but like, yeah, it really set the scene for me. And yeah, I think basketball has really, really helped cement my time at Cambridge, really. So those first 2 terms were defined by basketball, really. So
was the talent level what you were expecting then?
It's a much higher level than I was expecting. I was expecting it to be like, I don't want to say much about the UK basketball scene, but let's just say Cambridge is not known for basketball, nor is the UK generally. So I sort of thought I'd walk in and it would just be like a farmers league, but no, it's actually quite a high level, and I'm very impressed by it. And we get pushed quite hard. So we've got a lot of American postgrad students from, like, I think from Stanford or even from Australia and stuff. So yeah, it's not the typical UK basketball league kind of thing. Yeah.
So also like being an athlete then at Cambridge, you made it onto the team, but as you know, the journey doesn't stop there.
Nah. So bear in mind, so you've got your degree, which is already like quite a high workload. Some might argue that land economy isn't that high of a workload, but they don't know what they're talking about. But then on top of that, so I played both the university level and the college level. So Cambridge is made up of different colleges, and they've got a league between themselves. So I'm playing internally with Cambridge and then externally against other universities. So I was playing basketball about 6 times a week. So around about 12-ish hours of basketball a week, which is definitely physically demanding, but in my head it's like, well, I want to do it, so it doesn't feel like so much of a chore. And compared to a lot of the other sports, that's not bad at all. Rowing, I think they're up at like 6 a.m. in the morning and stuff. So yeah, we don't do all that. Yeah.
So when's your highlight tape coming up?
Yeah, don't watch that. I think like when it comes to highlights and stuff, I'm recording more of the games and stuff. That's one of my big criticisms with Cambridge, that they don't really record the games. They've got photographers, but they don't really have videographers. But I'm changing that next year. I'm going to have my guys with all their big cameras lined up. Every single bucket, I'll be cheesing at the cameras, pointing at the crowd. So yeah, highlight tape pending, basically.
One day we're going to have Hoops Fix.
Yeah.
Cambridge varsity match.
I actually, I'm on Hoops Fix, actually. I got a dunk in Hoops Fix a couple of years back. I used to play for West Hearts Warriors, and I got like a nice drive down the middle, 2-hand dunk. I think that was one of my first in-game dunks as well. So shout out Hoops Fix.
Fair enough. How do you then, which would you say you are first then? Are you a student or an athlete?
First and foremost, I'm an African. So definitely student. My parents always instilled in me first that like education is the principle and everything else can build from that. But definitely athletics and sports and those things are great, but I was always education first and then those things on top of it. I try and push myself to such a level that it's quite indistinguishable that, okay, I'm an athlete or a student or whatever, but in the phrase student athlete, student is the first word. And that's how I was always raised. So academic excellence is the priority and then the sports can come from that.
That makes sense. So how did you then find your people then at Cambridge?
So for me, I sort of went in thinking, okay, well, Cambridge, I'm not going to really have my people there. Like, it's more like I'm going to survive for 3 years and then come out with a good degree and then find my people afterwards, maybe. But no, when I came there, first of all, in the college, they've got a college system where you can actually sort of really like live with people that can be your boys, and it really makes it easier to connect with people because they live right next to you, like they're just up the road, or just up like a couple blocks down actually. So within college, I've got a very good set of friends, and a lot of them are, I don't know why, but this year my year was very like, it was full of Africans, so I don't know, there was a natural connection there. There's also the Afro-Caribbean Society as well, which really helps people of color and Africans and Afro-Caribbeans connect with other people like them. But also like basketball, I spent so many hours playing basketball, so I made some good friends from there as well. And then some people make friends with their subject. I sort of made those subject friends later on, sort of close to exam season, because I was playing basketball for so long. But yeah, you will find your people there. Anyone who says that there's no one like them in these universities, I don't want to go to Oxford, I don't want to go to Cambridge because there's no black people there, there's not people like me there, there's not basketball players there, is rubbish. There's people like you there. There's 40,000 or whatever people who attend Cambridge University. So mathematically, unless you are really that guy, there'll be someone like you there.
Like, yeah, I feel like when I first visited Cambridge, I was surprised by the amount of like Londoners there as well. Like, you'd first think that there'd be hella private school people, that no one's from your area. When I met someone from Barking and Dagenham, I was like, where are you from?
I think I've met, if I had to pinpoint the different, like if I had to do a heat map of where most of the people who I've met come from, I'd say either Stratford, Barking, Dagenham, Grays, Essex. That is the hottest area. Yeah. And they're not like private school kids. There are definitely those people there, but don't even get it twisted. Like, those people you'll grow to appreciate as well. Like, just because they go private school doesn't mean that they're any kind of way. Just because they go grammar school doesn't mean they're any kind of way. There are a lot of Brampton bandits, don't get me wrong. There are a lot of LAE people as well, NCS, those kind of schools. But at the end of the day, like, it's just about their character. And you'll find them. You'll find people like you there. So don't be discouraged thinking, oh, I don't want to go because there's not people like me. You deserve to be there as much as anyone else. So
you heard it here first. On this podcast, we will not tolerate any East London slander.
Well, I didn't say that. I did not say that. East London slander can be very funny, but yeah. No, like, just be open-minded when you go there, man, because some of the greatest people you'll meet are from places from places which you would never think, oh, my friend's going to be from there. But yeah.
Speaking on those like unexpected things about Cambridge, what's something you like about being a Cambridge student that most people don't know about?
That's a very good question. Yeah, I would definitely say the Afro-Caribbean community is really, really good. Heavy on the Afro though, and it really should be the Nigerian community because like I'd say it's overwhelmingly Nigerian.
Probably
but
the Yoruba community.
yeah, even still, like, but when I say the events have been really, really well organized in the sense of they're really fun, they're really diverse. The music, I don't know, like they just locked in with the DJs, the music these past few months. But yeah, I think when people think of Cambridge, they think of like a typical white private schoolboy, but really and truly the Afro-Caribbean community there is really, really strong and really, really fun sometimes. So that'd be number one. Number two, like this will sound nerdy, but just the academic, everyone is very academic there. So you can talk academically with everyone without them thinking you're unique or without them thinking you're wet. And it's something which I appreciate because even in my grammar school where people are all academic, they will still mock you for trying to be academic, you see. So, yeah.
Yeah, let's bring up the ACS. I feel like Michael, the former president, did
Shout
like a
out
really
Michael.
good job with outreach. And I feel like you should check out the Instagram because like they've got a lot of interesting stuff there.
Cambridge ACS. I'm sports officer for next year as well. So every year they do a varsity between Oxford and Cambridge ACS. And so I'll be organising that and that'll be a big tournament. And we're trying to sweep them in all four sports. I think it's football, basketball, netball, university challenge. So 4-0 pending. No, it was 2-2. So they won university challenge. Sorry, Cambridge won university challenge and netball. But football and basketball, I don't know about all that. But the thing is like it was at Oxford as well. They had home court advantage. You know, those kind of things there. So we'll sort it out.
Excuses right now, boy.
No excuses. It's just that's how life is. But we'll sort it out next year. Next year we're going for the clean 4-0. So yeah,
that's great to hear. I've got high hopes, yeah.
Good. Big, like from first term, I'm gonna have the team sorted. We're gonna do suicides 5 a.m. in the morning. Yeah, we're gonna be tough. So yeah, should be good.
Yeah. Would you say that you've had a lot of contact then with Oxford students?
Definitely, more than I expected. I feel like this term I've been in Oxford as much as I've been in Cambridge, really, because I went for ACS varsity, which is the sports day thing. I went for regular varsity as well, and then we have every Cambridge college has a sister college at Oxford. So I go to Downing. Our sister college is Lincoln College, and so we go there for like a sports day thing, and then the next year they'll come to us. So I went for that, and then also I went for like a Caribbean exchange program thing as well. So like
You've gone in.
Yeah, don't watch that. So like I've literally been at Oxford so many times this term, and I think I've grown to like it a lot more because as I mentioned before, like I was not very impressed with either Cambridge or Oxford, but now going there and seeing the students there and making good friends there, it's made me appreciate it a lot more.
It's funny how like you first looked at it as something that's just purely gonna help you in your career.
Yeah.
But I'm glad to see that's having such a like holistic impact on your person.
100%. And I think you really, no matter where you go for university, it doesn't have to be Oxbridge or LSE or UCL, Imperial. If you go to any university, you're gonna really push yourself as a person if you want to push yourself. And so that for me, that's a big goal of mine. And I'm very glad that it's having a positive impact on me so far. So yeah.
Now let's touch on something that will make your parents very happy, the academics.
Yeah.
So what was your first supervision like? And could you explain what supervisions are?
So yeah, that's actually a very good question. So supervisions are sort of unique to Oxford and Cambridge in the sense of most of your learning is done through supervisions. They drive your way through the course basically. So they're usually 1-on-2, sometimes 1-on-3 meetings with like an expert in your field, and they will really make sure that you know what you're talking about because you're being held accountable. Oftentimes the work that you're doing is written by the person who's doing the supervision. So like it's intense. My first supervision is for my paper 2. I won't say the supervisor's name, but he's like the GOAT. But he will make sure you know your stuff. So this is for public law. And he goes, "Hello, Sidney. So when was this law passed? Okay, when was it initiated? Whose idea initially was it? Who wrote the law? Okay, when was it first like penned? Okay, but who?" And he'll really break it down to the point where you know everything inside and out. And there's a very clear difference in grades between the students who he supervises versus the other supervisor who also teaches that paper. I really enjoyed it, but I left thinking like, bloody hell, man, like, am I even meant to be here? I felt so cooked. And bear in mind, I was a gap year student as well, so I hadn't done academics like that for a whole year, so I was rusty. He was asking me about stuff which I had done in year 13, politics, like my brain, I was racking my brain and stuff. But you'll find your feet eventually, and they do really try and guide you through it. So if you don't know the answers immediately, it's fine, but they will really catch you up to speed. So
would you say that's enabled you to have like a more close relationship with your professors then?
Yeah, I'd say so. Like, I bring my professors like Starbursts and stuff. Like, I wouldn't necessarily say they're my boys. In my grammar school, like, I was quite close to a lot of the teachers who I still even talk to this day. But yeah, if you want a closer, more academic and sort of also personal relationship, you can definitely get that. I know the economic students at Downing have a very good relationship with their supervisors and stuff. So yeah.
Now we touched on quite a bit now. We know you play basketball for the university, college, and as a blue. You go to ACS events.
Yes.
And you also do flying.
Yes.
And you also do your degree, of course.
Yes.
Shout out land economy.
Shout out land economy.
So how do you balance all of them?
I do more things on top of that as well. So like,
yeah, well, get into that, don't worry.
So like for me, I just make sure that I'm super organized, and I'm also just very diligent. I just go to what says in my calendar. I just show up, and then from there, give it my best. If it goes well, so be it. If it doesn't go well, that's life, kind of thing. But yeah, I just make sure that I work hard. I wish I had some sort of deeper philosophy about it, but just I show up and I try and do cool things, and then if it's cool, it's cool. If it's not cool, it's not cool. That's my philosophy for most things, at least.
Would you say you enjoy most of your day then? Like you enjoy putting yourself?
Yeah, 100%. I think the happiest I am is when I'm like, I've got a lot of things which I find meaningful and I'm working towards those kind of things. So definitely I think it's tough, but it's rewarding, it's validating. And you meet really cool people along the way who makes it easier as well. So yeah.
It's great to hear. Now, onto the other thing.
Yeah.
Of course, the main reason everyone wants to go to Oxford and Cambridge is to boost their career.
Yeah.
I don't think you should go to that type of university for career.
Yeah.
Because as you can hear, there's more stuff. But Sydney has had internships at JP Morgan and McKinsey. Tell us how it happened.
So yeah, I remember sort of starting my second term, thinking, well, I'm going to get none of these internships and stuff. I didn't apply to that many. I didn't really intend to like bag that many of them, but I just got a random like phone call from JP one day saying like, "Oh, we saw your application. Like, we'd like to interview you." Da, 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 da. And so yeah, I did the video interview process, that kind of stuff, and they said, "Yeah, we'd like to extend you an offer for the Spring Week program." And that Spring Week program was really, really good. It was so well organized. The team were amazing, and I was like, "Well, then hopefully I can convert this to a summer internship for 2025." And yeah, I just did the mock interviews. Everything went well. And then I got the offer for the 2025. And I didn't realize how everyone in the course were like gassing it, because I don't know why, but land economy had a drought of internships this year. But to me, it was more like, it's a workplace. I find their work very interesting. And it sort of touches back on what I was saying about not worshipping an institution. Because I think I was very chill about the whole thing. Yeah, it just made it a lot easier. I just think I went into it thinking, cool, well, like, I think I'm good at this. I think I can show them that I'm good at this, and then whatever happens, happens. So JP was definitely a big one. McKinsey, also another big one. I really, really enjoyed their Black Future Leaders program, which I had to do with them. We've met some really, really cool speakers and like consultants who work there as well. And then also I got another one at a bank called Lazard, which is like this sort of elite boutique investment bank, which I also really enjoy. That one's coming up in like a week or something from now. And then I also got another one, which I'm going to do in Ghana as well. But that's more like development work as well. 100%. And that's something which I prioritize a lot, you know, giving back to, because me, I'm a proud Ghanaian. Like, as much smoke as I hold for that in Cambridge, especially, like, I'm proud of where I'm from and I want to give back there as well. So I'm actually like trying to improve how to write it as well, because it's actually quite difficult writing it, because the alphabet's quite different. Like there's like number 3, like there's O's without the full O, like all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm just trying to improve at that. And I'm going to Ghana for 5 weeks now. So yeah, by the end of that trip, don't even speak to me in English. I only speak Chi. So yeah.
I know a few true words, you know.
Drop some bars.
Aquaba.
Okay, that's tough.
It's
Oh, me patchway, yeah. Now.
Yeah, now we're done.
Yeah, okay. But yeah.
So what was you say was the way first? Did you know what Spring Weeks were coming into?
Yeah, so my sister goes to LSE, so she is like a finance sweat. So I'm a product of her legacy, really. She basically just like put me on games. It's just saying, do this. And if I'm going to recommend anything for you guys, is try and get that stuff done in first year. A lot of people say don't worry about it in first year, focus on the second year. But if you can get yourself in a situation like where I am now, where I put in the work in first year, so now in second year it's guaranteed, so I don't have to stress in second year, and I can focus more on the academics, then you're good as gold, really. And yeah, so I knew about spring weeks. I wasn't dying for any of them, you know, like if I got them, I got them. If I didn't get them, I didn't get them. And it shouldn't sort of define how hard you work or whatever. I know some people who apply for like close to 100 or something of them. There's like a spreadsheet made by Bristol and made by LSE, trackers where you can sort of see the different links. I didn't do any of that. I just applied for the ones which I was in, and like, because I'm part of an organization called Rare Recruitment. They're really, really good. They help Hull Oxbridge as well as SEO London. I just applied to the ones which they recommended, and then it worked out nicely. So if you're a person of color from London, or like me, just outside of London, then apply for those two institutions and hope for the best, really.
That's great to hear. What was the company culture like then at McKinsey and at JP Morgan?
Both were really, really good. Like you hear a lot of these sort of Wolf of Wall Street stories of like, oh yeah, they like shout at you and they like throw like dwarves at the top. Nah, it's none of that. It's just JP. I'll say the slight differences between them is JP. The roles are a lot more technical in the sense of you're going into finance, so it's very tangible what you're doing, right? Like, so when they give you advice, it'll be like, learn how to code, learn what an ETF is, that kind of stuff. Whereas McKinsey, sometimes it felt a bit airy-fairy in the sense of, I didn't really know what I actually had to do. And it's that sort of age-old question of like, what do consultants actually do? I asked that question like 20 times that day, and they said like, we try and manage the client, and I was like, but what does a day look like for you? And they sort of, I would say they struggled to answer, but I struggled to understand what their answer was. And so that's why I originally learned more JP. But at the end of the day, like, I'm still 19, like I'm open to everything. But both were amazing. I wouldn't mind working for either of those two companies. So yeah.
Have you thought as well about taking any aviation work experience as well?
100%. The only thing about aviation is that the barriers to entry are a lot higher, because it's like you can't really just like shadow an airline pilot in an A380. Like, it's a lot harder. Yeah, exactly. Definitely pre 9/11, you were able to do things like that, but like nowadays is kind of a myth. So that's kind of why I've been limited to sort of finance consulting, that kind of thing. But that's one of my main goals, especially going forward, is trying to break down those barriers for people who are looking to go into aviation, because there are great organizations out there. Shout out Fantasy Wings and like things like that. But especially at the airline level, there's definitely a barrier which needs to be broken down, especially in the UK as well. A lot of countries like Germany, USA have partnerships with their like national airline to like sort of get people in. But it's only since like very, very, very post-COVID have the British airlines been opening up programs. So trying to expand on that.
Yeah. How would you say as well that you're able to talk to so many different people from different fields that you wouldn't normally come across?
Just being humble, listening to people, but then also, like I said, my experience in going to a grammar school meant that I can relate to a lot of people from all different walks of life, in the sense of I met people who go to grammar school. Like I played rugby, so I can talk with private school people, but also like Watford is kind of like road, it kind of ends, so I can talk to people like from that kind of background as well. And I also just try and be sort of culturally aware in different cultures, that kind of stuff. So yeah, it's just sort of learning about other people, wanting to learn about other people. That's the key. It's not just knowing, okay, I know this, but wanting to learn from them. And then yeah, like just like Jamal drops some chi, and like that immediately like breaks down barriers. If you can speak a little bit of their language as well, that'd be nice too. And yeah, it really helps unlock doors, because you can sort of stand on the shoulders of giants and fast track your progress. So if you can do that in anything you're doing, I'd recommend.
Yeah, I feel like the main thing that made me resonate with you was like your sense of curiosity. I feel like our generation seems to want to see who can care the least about things, like who's the most nonchalant.
Yeah.
But I feel like in order to get that intellectual curiosity and have that interestingness, that's not even a word, but about you, you've got to start caring a lot more about just random things.
100%. I don't know when it became cool not to care. I think that where I'm from, that's not very cool. Like, I know where I'm from. I know how hard I've worked to be here. So to work to get here and then pretend like I don't care, like that's a bit weird. When it comes to nonchalance, like I wouldn't necessarily say like I am super like not nonchalant. Like people will call me nonchalant, but it's not because I don't
You're
care.
just tired from basketball.
I'm just fatigued. I'm literally limping like from training. Like if you're gonna come to me with some rubbish, then of course it's gonna be harder. But no, seriously though, it's about like caring about the right things, caring about like, okay, cool, I actually want to do this in the future. So let me actually care for this. And just being able to focus your attention and your effort and your energy on the things that you find meaningful. And then anything else, then you can be nonchalant and like try and attract the baddies. But before that, like focus on what is actually important to you.
Would you say that you've now for certain found your people then at Cambridge?
Yes, but you know, I don't think I found all of my people in the sense of I know eventually I'm going to find in whatever I go into more people like me, and especially with all these internships, I'm realizing, okay, cool, there's people in older age groups as well. I feel like with university, you're limited to that sort of 18 to 24-ish age range. But I realized, okay, cool, there's people who are 30 who have done what I want to do. There's people who are 40 who have done what I want to do. So there's women who have done what I want to do. There's people who are non-binary who have done what I want to do. So I think just realizing that I found the start of my people, but eventually down the line, I'm going to bump into more people who I wouldn't initially think are my people, but you eventually realize, like, you know what, everyone listens to Ashake, so it's fine.
Ashake breaking down boundaries.
Yeah, 100%. And that's another thing as well. If you go into a top university like Cambridge, Oxford, be yourself. Like if you listen to Ashake, listen to your Ashake. Like if you do like your small, like if you watch like Snowfall, if you watch Power, if you hoop, if you fly, just be yourself. Like there'll be people there like you as well. So definitely embrace it.
That's a really great message. Now I wanted to ask you as well is that you said about finding your own people. And first you need to know who you are.
Yeah.
Before finding your own people. So what kind of identity do you aspire to have? Or what have you already built for yourself? Like how do you view yourself?
That's a very, very like good and philosophical question. I think for me, there's always an identity battle of like, are you really who you think you are? Like, do you really work as hard as you think you work? Are you really as talented as you think you are? Like, have you accomplished as much as you should have by this certain age? And for me, I've realized now that I'm very secure in who I am because I don't really tie myself to what I've done. It's more like, okay, first and foremost, I'm the best Sidney or I'm the best Kofi. Like, that's me. And then from there, okay, cool. Like the JP, people like celebrate, okay, oh, like Mr. JP, okay, you got that? Nice. But that has come additional. Cambridge has come additional. The flying has come additional. But I was the same person when I had that. I was the same person when I didn't have that. So a lot of these things are amplifiers, right? If you're like a good person and you have all these things, you can be an even better person. If you're a bad person, you have all these things, you'll be an even worse person. So I think just sort of really taking some time to be introspective and thinking, what do I value? Who do I value? Who do I want to work for? Like, what is my motivating goal? If you know those sort of things, then it's quite easy to derive who you are and then who you want to be. But yeah, like you don't have to have it all figured out. Like I'm just 19. Like I don't have all the answers, but yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you have said you're 19, but I really do get like a more mature perspective about you. That unkness.
Yeah, I mean, like, I feel like I've just seen a lot of life. I've seen lots of different walks of life, and I've done a lot of things in my like 19 short years on this earth. So I try and view life from a level where I'm not acting like a 19-year-old. But that being said, like, there are times where it can be exhausting to always be super mature and super locked. And there's time where you need enjoyment as well. Like, that's why I'm going to go to Nigeria this summer. Like, there'll be enjoyment. But at the end of the day, like, yeah, maturity is something which I have always valued. And that's why I try and carry myself as someone, not necessarily who's older, but someone who just, you know, acts a certain way because they've seen a certain number of things.
I feel like that's especially valuable because the one thing that breaks down as you get older is your body, right?
Yeah.
So naturally, you want to be...
Apart from LeBron.
Yeah, 22 years now?
Yeah. Hashtag Wash King. Just a kid from Akron. Yeah.
NBA the good.
No cap. Anyways.
We can get onto...
We done with the 90s, bro.
You think Michael Jordan didn't have a left hand?
He's Jaylen Brown with aura, bro.
Are you?
That guy is Jaylen Brown with aura.
Yeah, finals MVP is a finals MVP.
I hear it. Like, MJ is tough, but he's not better than LeBron. Like, I'm telling you, if you put him in this league, he's not better than LeBron. Over 22 years, he's not better than LeBron. If Bron was playing in the 90s, he would have like 10 rings, bro. From 90 to 99, he would have won every single ring.
I mean,
anyways.
Only time will solve it. Do you think that then, Because obviously land economy is clowned upon, as you said, right? But it hasn't stopped you from...
It's clowned upon within Cambridge as a joke, but I think most people recognise that it's a very serious degree. Yeah.
So it hasn't limited your career opportunities at all then?
I think it's enhanced it, if anything.
Fair enough.
There's no job which you cannot get with land economy that you can get with, let's say, pure economics or with like law or any of the comparable degrees. The only thing that maybe I would say land economy can't get you into is like if you want to be a quant, like if you want to be a quantitative trader, then I'd say go for maths, comp ski, not even economics, maths, comp ski or physics, nat ski, one of those ones. But apart from that, like Atlantic doesn't limit you. Atlantic, all these degrees are homogenous at a point, whether it's from LSE, Warwick, UCL, Oxford, Cambridge, or the Ivy League universities. The degrees are homogenous at a point. Everyone's got them. So it's just who are you on top of that? And that's what the employers are looking for career-wise, in my opinion. So
do you think then that the earlier work you were doing, like your extracurriculars, so being head boy, doing rugby, doing basketball, definitely allowed you to have this much career success?
Everything's built on each other. Like it's not one day I woke up and I just bang. But like, for example, taking the year out to do the flying, I think has helped me more career-wise than any degree could have. Obviously, you need the degree to, it's sort of like pay to play. As soon as you have the degree, then cool. But having that year of just doing something cool, not only like directly they ask about it in the interview, but it just gives you sort of swagger of like, hey, I'm the pilot guy. That like you can't really teach if you haven't done it before. Same with basketball. It gives you a certain level of competitiveness. It gives you a certain level of self-confidence. It gives you a certain level of like swag, you know, and they all play into each other. So, yeah.
That's great to hear. Do you feel like then it's easy to like acclimatize to different environments then because of that?
Yeah, 100%. Like for me, there's no environment which I feel like completely foreign in now. Obviously, there's things which I for example, I don't watch anime or I'm not like an emo or that kind of stuff. But like, I'm sure should I be in a room with people who do that, I'll be open-minded enough to interact with them because of my previous experience of having to interact with different people from different backgrounds. Like you hoop, right? Like it's not everyone who hoops who looks like is from your area. There's Filipinos, there's English people, there's Americans.
Oh, they're Australians.
Bro. Yeah, the Australians are tough too. You know, I don't even know what they're feeling out there. The Europeans with their very high jump shots, like you always have to bump into different people. And so I'm sure as well it's helped you develop like personally and having to interact with other people, right?
Yeah.
I think it's very easy when you're in that sort of Cambridge bubble to forget. There's a lot of people who like to social climb. They only hang out with certain people because they're from certain backgrounds. There's people who just completely change up. But if you remember where you're from, then and you look back and think, hey, I've made this from where I've come, that's where you'll be the most proud of yourself. So 100%. Is there any sort of last things you want to ask or wrap up with?
So I was doing my due diligence preparing for this podcast,
100%.
And I noticed that you follow quite a few chess accounts.
Yes.
Hikaru, Nakamura, and chess.com. So
yeah.
When did you start playing chess? And what got you into it?
I think for me, I like to try new things which I think I'll be bad at. So before, like obviously now it kind of sounds ridiculous, but before I used to think, well, I'm not very logical, I'm not very like analytical, I'm not very smart. So I was like, well, what game can I play or what can I do to sort of prove how And so for me that was chess. It was always a thing where like, okay, in my school people play chess, but it's like, that's wet. And there was a boom, like I think the Queen's Gambit came out and then COVID hit. And so there was a lot of different phases in which people sort of got into chess. For me, it was originally the Queen's Gambit. So I watched that and I was like, you know what, let me just start playing. And I was buns, like I was straight doo-doo cheeks at chess at first, right? But I think it's just something which like I like to keep on the side because you know, is a good sort of distraction from everything else. It's a good filler, like when I'm on the train, I can play like a quick game of chess. And like now I've improved dramatically from when I started to where I am now. So yeah.
If you ever won a game, shout me.
Okay, well then, what would you say your rating is?
Nah, I'm semi-retired. But it would just be a good time.
Yeah. Thank you.
I've enjoyed this a lot. What are your socials and where should we follow you?
So it's at Sid Kofi on Instagram, Sidney Sarpong on LinkedIn. The YouTube channel is pending, but when that drops as well, then maybe we can drop that in the description as well. But yeah, thank you so much, Jamal, for this. I really enjoyed it. Thank you.
Man. Thank you.